Hey man, again, lots of great stuff for us to work on here at Sonoma. Again, you're driving really well, which is awesome to see. It's fun to watch. Love your car control, your commitment, all of that. So let's go ahead and start breaking some stuff down here. Love your approach here into turn one. A little bit wide of this concrete barrier here. You're getting out wide. Love that. But one thing I will say here that I think is going on is notice how we spend a partial throttle all the way up the hill. I like your line, I like your line, I like your line, but the car starts understeering away from the left side of the road here, and that means we're turning in pretty much all the way from the inside here, making turn two way sharper than it needs to be. So what I would like to see you try to work on here is what can we do to reduce the amount of understeer in this little section here, and that's by kind of the theme, another thing that we've been talking about, trying to spend a little bit more time on full throttle here and then lifting and just let the car coast up the hill, coast up the hill. By having less throttle down here, you're gonna have a little bit more weight on the front end. And my question is, maybe we're gonna, with that a little bit more front grip, as long as it's not too much more front grip, can we actually have the same amount of speed through here and hold the car left? Because I would rather see you be just a tiny bit slower down the hill. Everything's within reason, right? Like I don't want you being way slower, but tiny bit slower down the hill, so it could be a little bit more to the left here to open up our radius for turn two, so we can roll more speed over the top in turn two and get back to that full throttle earlier. Notice how we only really get back to full throttle at the end of this exit curve. I want to be back to full throttle back over here. You're not far away from it, but if you're just kind of cruising here at this 90% throttle, well, I'm going to start to catch up to you and probably pass you speed-wise, even if I'm a little bit slower through the middle of the apex in turn two. But ultimately, I don't think I'm going to be slower in the apex in turn two. So maybe you roll a little bit more speed than I do through here to here, so you might be faster there, to maybe even to about here. So you might be, sorry, let me back this up. By being on throttle, let's say you're possibly faster than me from here to about here. But now I've set up for turn two more. I'm gonna be faster from here all the way down to the entry point for turn three. Look how much more time that is. So sometimes you gotta give up a little bit to set up to maximize the length of time you're faster. In turn three, love that you're turning in at the end of the curve here on the right-hand side. I'd like to see you probably turn in a little bit slower. See how we turn in here and it's a little aggressive, and then you get more aggressive right here, and then we're a tiny early to apex, or a tiny bit early to throttle, and that pushes you a little bit wider than I'd like to see you. What I'd like to see is, can we turn in slower? Can we apex a little bit later? Can we get a squirt of full throttle in here, or a little bit more aggressive throttle, and then come off the throttle and be patient, 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 and get back to initial throttle here at the exit of 3B. I don't want to see you spend that long on maintenance throttle, because that just creates understeer. It's why you're really fighting the car. It's why you're only getting back to full throttle here. So ultimately, I'd like to see you spend less time on throttle here, but much more time at aggressive throttle. Coming in, a little bit more patience, squirt of full throttle, off throttle, coast, 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 initial throttle, and then maybe back to full throttle here. That's going to be helping you all the way down to turn four. Turn four, love what you're doing. Good initial throttle application spot. Awesome, awesome job. Really, really solid there. I'll be honest, I can't quite figure out what's going on in turn six here. So turn six, I like where you are right now. I don't really see much of a turning point, but all of a sudden we like apex too early. Like all of a sudden we're down to the inside of the racetrack. And I didn't see a big turn in, right? I've been struggling. I've watched this a few times. I'm like, what is going on here? The best way I can describe turn six, and this looks like we're probably just turning in too early here. It looks like we just kind of get subtly the wrong car angle too early, and that's why we have to turn back to the right and then turn back to the left. I want to be looking straight down the road, and then as I come up and crest, only start to turn in there. And ultimately, there's not really a good reference point, but I want to be apexing. There's this kind of like little nook right in here that I just kind of look for. Again, I know this is not a very specific thing, and I apologize that it can't be more specific here. There's just sort of a feeling that as I crest over, I'm looking for just right in here, this little area, this little grassy spot, and that's where I want to aim the car for. So I don't want to be all the way out to the right. I'm turning in from about mid-road, maybe slightly more to the right than mid-road, but look at the car angle that gives me, and that allows me to roll more speed down the hill. We're too tight in. That means we're looking too straight, which then means if you're trying to do the same thing, right, because you're coming in with this, look how much harder you have to turn at that point to get that car angle. And like we talked about earlier, the harder you have to turn, the slower you have to go. So by being a little bit wider, a little bit later, and slower, I'm going to be able to roll more speed down the hill here through the first apex in turn 6. So I'm going to be faster in here. And then notice how you kind of, I'm going to be very specific here. You hold the white line all the way through. I want to see you, I want to bring in speed so that we kind of apex in here, and the car takes me just a little bit wide of the white line. I don't want to use all the road to my right. I only want to be a half car width off the right-hand side. But ultimately, what I want to be able to do is coming in, super light on the brakes, coasting. The car takes me wider, and I want to be able to bring in more entry speed, and the car naturally understeers wide. I'm waiting for the car to get that rotation to head back towards the second apex before getting back to initial throttle. So by being a little bit wider and then coming back for the second apex, a little bit wider, not the whole track, a little bit, half car width off the inside, I'm more patient to throttle, and I'm going to have less steering input in the car. Where your car right now, because we were tight in, we're back to initial throttle, we're really much like have our car pointed in this direction. I'm going to have a little subtle difference where I'm going to be looking a little bit more in this direction, and that's what's going to allow me to get back to full throttle earlier. So ideally, I'm only getting back to initial throttle in this zone right in here, and then I'm back to full throttle here, and I'll be fighting the car much less than you are as well. Look how you only get back to full throttle way out over here. So really work on a little bit more of a double apex here, a little bit later, and have a car that kind of comes in, hits the first apex, runs, takes you a little bit off the inside, and you're waiting for the car to start to grip up and head back towards that second apex, which is the start of that curve. I should have mentioned that a little bit earlier. My second apex comes right here, the start of this curve, and that's kind of where I want to try to get back to initial throttle, bam, back to full throttle. In turn 7, it's going to be something similar here. Your line looks really good in turn 7. What I would question is, your line looks great. We're a little early to throttle here. See how we're starting to feed that throttle in? We're not unwinding the steering wheel yet. And because of that, where do we get back to full throttle? I'd like to see you back to full throttle about here. We're only back to full throttle way out over here. So my question to you would be, can we be a little bit faster in here and still get down and slow the car down to the same minimum speed, but have the minimum speed come just slightly later? So can you brake at the same point, but then actually get lighter on the brakes here, lighter on the brakes, lighter on the brakes, lighter on the brakes, lighter on the brakes, extend that brake zone to be a little bit longer into the corner, maybe even add a tiny bit of brake pressure here just to get more rotation. But most importantly, I just want you to wait and be patient to throttle and wait until you have the car pointed towards the second apex. Now I'm getting to initial throttle, and then now you're back to full throttle. Now you'll be faster all the way down to the turn 8 area. Again, similar theme here throughout all of this. Can we spend, look how much time we spend on maintenance throttle through this section. Maintenance throttle, 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 maintenance throttle. That whole section, we're just kind of like, yeah, we're working it, but we're not really working it. So what I'd like to see in here is, can we hold full throttle deeper in? Again, spend more time at full throttle. Maybe brake a little bit here, light on the brakes, patient, 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 patient. Little squirt of throttle, hold it a little bit more left, come off the throttle, coast, back to initial throttle now, and then bam, back to full throttle here. See how I am spending much less time on throttle there, but I'm spending more time at full throttle. That's the theme. Let's see here. I was surprised that we had to lift in here, to be honest with you. This is usually a flat out corner. You're kind of late apexing this like weird area. I normally just kind of hug the inside through here. you're really fighting the car though. You're at the limit, so maybe that's just. I'm just surprised to see us really fighting the car through here. I normally just hug the inside and we're flat all the way through, no problem in any car I've got. So just try that. See if there's a little bit more grip down the inside. Don't go inside and flat out lap 1. To see if, hey, if I keep it to the inside, there's no more grip in here. Turn 10, good turning point. A little early to throttle, right? Very early to throttle, I should say. So let's work on a lighter brake zone in here. My initial throttle application comes right now. So look how I'm feeding in the throttle as you're coming off the throttle, and then I'm feeding it in, full throttle, and you're still fighting it a little bit later. So there's more speed available on entry, but we first got to get that throttle in the right spot. Take a look here at turn 11. For me, what I want to see you apex is that third tire stack. That's my apex here. Looks like to me that we're apexing closer to the second tire stack and then holding it, but then we can't unwind the steering wheel at corner exit. So if we go farther forward here, where does that apex come? See how you're already here? I want to see you a little bit later of a turning point. It's all about getting back to full throttle here. A little bit later of a turning point and a slower hand. Slow those hands down so we're apexing only the next tire stack. And notice our throttle, too early. So right now, where your car is sort of looking in this direction, I would want to be a little bit later and come across and be looking a little bit more down the road. I've definitely over-exaggerated that, and I apologize on this. I'm not looking that much farther down the road. I wish. But by coming in apex in that third tire stack and being more patient to throttle, you're going to be able to get back to that full throttle earlier. So I'm going to wait. Notice how your hands only start to open up here? That's my initial throttle application spot. And then I want to be back to full throttle in here, where you're only back to full throttle there. That 2 car lengths of full throttle matters. It's going to matter all the way down to turn 1. All about maximizing time spent at full throttle. Build that patience into initial throttle, really tie in those hands and feet here, and then boom, get back to full throttle. Tying in those hands and feet are the number one thing that I want you to really focus on, no matter where you are. See how that theme creeped up in every track. Laguna, a little bit less than Buttonwillow, but it was still there. A little bit more here at Sonoma. So just keep thinking about that in the back of your mind. It'll probably tell us you to take that 1 step back, but be patient, work on it, because I promise it's going to allow you to take 5 steps forward. Thanks again for using Racers360. Really excited to be working with you. Can't wait to see your progression on all 3 tracks, and hopefully some more tracks in the future as well. If there's anything else we could do for you, I'm always available. Don't hesitate to reach out, and we're really excited to have you on the team.